Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. That is Jack. I am Conrad. This is the Footy 5 with a look back at the UEFA Champions League final, an all-English affair, won surprisingly, maybe not so surprisingly, given what Pep Guardiola did at the outset of this game, by Chelsea, 1-0. Not much of a showing at all for City in this one, just one shot on target for a City side that doesn't usually do that.
They were cut through pretty easily for that one goal. Havertz got in behind. Ederson was literally at the edge of his box. I think he both came out too far and then decided not to finish the job. He left like 2 yards between him and Havertz.
He was in no man's land.
He just popped it past him, and Ederson was just like, I either handball it, get a red, clean him out, get a red, or let him go by and he scores a goal. He chose the smart option, I think, which was to let him score a goal. You back yourself to try and come back in this match. But, I mean, the big things was just a lack of I don't want to say a structure, because City had a good structure, but
they didn't look like they knew what they were doing or what they were supposed to do.
They struggled to win the ball back. Mount, Conte, even Havertz, they had a lot of success in the midfield. There wasn't someone breaking up the play for Chelsea. So Chelsea had their way when they were moving the ball around versus Man City, who just couldn't really create much because, I mean, you had 2 false nines. I don't know if I agree with 2 false nines, but it was like Foden and De Bruyne were operating as these just not going to play as a striker, not going to play as a midfielder, just kind of like, we're going to show up and vibe. Like it.
And then you count on Sterling to do something, and
that's a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea. I mean, it was painful watching him and Timo Werner trying to put a ball on frame. Like, there were multiple times when they had the ball in a good spot. Like, Werner and Raheem Sterling are 2 of the best players at generating chances with their movement, their speed.
And you don't use them like that, guess what?
And they don't use their chances. So you just think, if they could learn how to control it with either both feet, put it on frame, they could be world beaters. But they're not. Werner has more time, I think, than Sterling does, who's, I think, nearing his 27th birthday. But
Tuchel summed it up, and what we were all thinking. We expected Fernandinho or Rodri to start. This is only the second time in 60 matches where one of those 2 did not make the starting lineup. The only other time was against Olympiacos back in early part of November, and that was a 3-0 win. They weren't really all that concerned in that match, clearly. But it just, I think Fernandinho allows that midfield to do other things, right? But they wanted Gundogan in there clearly because he can score goals, but nobody looked like they knew what they were doing.
It was a really confusing use of Gundogan. I mean, he's a good complete midfielder. Doesn't have too many error gaps in his game. He can score goals. He's good defensively, but I mean, you ruin his completeness by forcing him into the most defensive part of a midfield. Like, for Fernandinho and Rodri, Fernandinho more so.
That's what he does.
They offer the defensive structure that would allow De Bruyne, allow Foden, Sterling, Mahrez a bit more protection, Gundogan as well, that they just didn't have.
They had the lowest, your favorite stat. You go.
Yeah. So they had the lowest XG in this match, 0.52, out of any match this season. That is what you call bottling.
Tells what you did.
That is, in the moment, they could not stand up to it. This was their biggest match in their club's history, and they fell short of the light.
Pep outpepped himself. Like, everybody was criticizing him at the beginning. From the moment that team sheet came out, they were saying he's overthinking
the moment Man City entered the Champions League, they were afraid this was going to happen, because this is what Pep does. He overcomplicates the sport so often.
Just pick your best 11, roll the ball out there and play.
The fact of the matter is, yes, it's important to tailor your side to your opposition. But do not
tailor your tactics and
do not tailor the way your entire side plays to try and deal with them. And there was this clip that made the rounds where he was using his hands, gesticulating how Chelsea play. They have 3 defensive mids. They're able to play really compact, but also spread out really wide. And people are like, oh my God, he has them figured out. And I mean, it was like, yeah, he has them figured out.
He doesn't know what to do with it.
It's not that hard to read a tactic. It's not a revolutionary thing to say that you can.
This is what we expect him to do.
If you watch a team for long enough, just like stare and focus at it, it's like there's no hidden tricks that are like a player turns invisible and they make their move. Like, everything is visible to see. It's just his sides weren't comfortable with what they were doing because he threw some variables in there. I mean, I imagine Gundogan, Foden, De Bruyne have a luxury to have Fernandinho watching their back. Take that away, And, I mean, it's
There's
just
a lot of space. So we talked about Conte in the last. You should totally go check it out. It's our review of the last day of the last season. And subscribe. It's free. We actually know what we're talking about sometimes. Conte was unbelievable in this match, and he's the difference maker for this team. I saw the statistic. He won the most aerial duels of anybody in this match with 4.
Mm-hmm.
He's 5'6" tall.
Yes. What
He's everywhere.
What I've learned about heading, what I've seen, is that it's less so about, I mean, size plays in a very important
Positioning.
part, but it's about positioning, and it's about bravery. It's about your ability to go up there and just try and get your head to the ball first. Like Thiago for Liverpool is a tremendous header of the ball. He wins a huge rate of his aerial duels, and you wonder why. He's short, but he's
everywhere.
Gets a big leap, puts himself positionally good, and just makes himself awkward for the defender. Conte is fearless. He is an engine. He does so many different jobs. This wasn't his best season. People have been saying he should win the Ballon d'Or. No, shut up. Just shut up. Lewandowski.
Actually, the only one I saw say that was anyhow, we'll cut it out.
I mean, basically, anyone who says win the Ballon d'Or, you're a clown. I mean, he's been great in these. I think what Conte does.
Trevor Noah, who I saw a tweet from Trevor Noah.
Was it? Okay. Great footballing knowledge of Trevor Noah. Conte, I think, is the inverse of this Man City side. Man City's such good on average. Over an entire league season, they can be tremendous. Conte, he can get worn down like that. But in one match, you have to take one midfielder.
But
he's one of the first ones you take because he does so
There's
many
so much
things.
better with him.
He does such a – I mean, he hasn't had a good season, right? I mean, he was poor at the beginning of the year. But he has been tremendous. Man of the match in both legs of the semifinal. Man of the match in the final. I would say he borderline carried this team to this point.
He certainly carried the midfield.
Yes. I'm happy to see some of these players get some success. I mean, obviously.
Dear CBS.
Yes.
Please cool it on the Christian Pulisic talk. Thank you.
Because, I mean, look, it was almost like, look, I get they want to try and drive the sport up in America. But drive the sport up in America by the merits of the sport, not by the merits of Christian Pulisic, who's a great player. He's a tremendous. And I love to see him having success because he should have started over Werner. I'm sorry. Timo Werner.
Oh, man, that whiff in the first.
Timo Werner was awful.
That was terrible. He did his best Timo Werner Premier League impression. It was terrible.
It was terrible from Timo Werner. Like I like Timo Werner. I've said he could be a tremendous player because he has unbelievable movement, unbelievable pace.
He just does not know how to deal with the physicality. That's what he complained about in the first couple of weeks he was in the league. He's not big.
He will adapt next year. I think he's. Was he my? No, he wasn't my golden boot. My golden boot was Kane, which is.
No, you had Kai Havertz as your young player.
Kai Havertz was my young player.
He just paid for his transfer fee, by the way, with that goal.
He did just have first goal in 20 Champions League appearances. Very, very happy to see him having a bit of success because you don't want to see players flopping.
I'm just surprised he didn't just walk that ball into the net, given where his confidence must have been, and just not risk the shank. Right? Put it over the bar.
If he had managed to miss that would have legitimately been the most.
Just dribble the ball into the back of the net.
He made it anyways.
Christensen. So Thiago Silva goes out injured. You get a little bit worried. Christensen came on, played well.
Yes.
Rudiger played well, and controversially, he took the block charge game with De Bruyne, ended up knocking him out and he did not look good.
Yeah.
He looked woozy sitting on the sideline, and then him walking back to the dressing room did not look good. Hopefully he doesn't have any lasting effects from that.
Yeah. I mean. It was just an unfortunate collision, I mean,
it was not an unfortunate collision. Rudiger stopped and stood in the way, and De Bruyne had nothing to do other than run into him. One of them's wearing a mask, and one of them isn't. One of them is much, much bigger than the other.
It was a very cynical challenge from Rudiger, a very deserving yellow card.
If you call standing in the way a challenge, it was lucky he didn't get. Well, I don't know if it was a red card offense.
It definitely wasn't in my eyes because he wasn't leading with his forehead to try and just knock him out of
Rudiger
the
is
game.
a big human being.
But I think he was obviously going to be like, all right, I'm going to leave. I'm going to let him feel this one, right? This is Kevin De Bruyne. But I don't think any footballer walks out, except for maybe like Roy Keane, walks out in the field and it's like, all right, this guy's not going to walk. He's not going to be able to get up, all right, after this tackle.
Bad.
It was unfortunate because people are comparing the crying pictures of De Bruyne versus Fernandes, and I'm going to make a bit of a controversial statement. Fernandes is nowhere even close to some of the midfielders we've talked about today. He is a good goal scorer, but lacks a lot of different areas in his game. De Bruyne is the best midfielder in the world in my eyes, and it was unfortunate to see him removed. He was bad in this game. He was a pretty non-factor. But
Well,
do you want to know why that
who's
is?
that? Yeah.
Because he was playing as a false nine.
I was
He's
gonna
not a
say,
false nine.
He's not playing what he's good at doing.
It's
It
like
was unbelievable.
So what my biggest takeaway was, Man City will probably go and sign Harry Kane. Assuming Pochettino
it's
doesn't go
done.
back.
It's done.
Because what this is going to do is it's going to
Give him 110 points next season.
It's going to push De Bruyne back into the midfield. It's going to have a guy who can create like
Pep doesn't like strikers.
but and he'll manage to teach Harry Kane to be a midfielder somehow. And
He
he'll
wants
figure
to play a
out, you know,
4-5.
you know what he's going to do? He's going to take Harry Kane's passing range and turn him into a defensive midfielder. He's going to be able to just invert his side at some point. So he's got fullbacks tucking in to play as wingers.
So depressing.
He'll have strikers playing as cover for the center backs. But Chelsea, I mean, they did a tremendous job. And I think
Frank Lampard had a Champions League squad in 9th place. Is that what you said earlier?
Yeah, it was maybe 9th place, something like that. But I mean, I don't know if this is. I think this is more bad for Lampard than it is good because
yeah.
he said like this side we're not ready to compete yet, and then Tuchel came in and was like, buddy, I'm gonna take you to 2 finals in 6 months
And finish top 4
It's-
after you couldn't barely crack the top 10.
It's harsh on Lampard because, you know, he is a legend of the club. He won them a Champions League title when he was a player, but he came there too soon.
Yeah, not ready.
I think that should be the message to. There's so many of them right now. You look at Koeman. Koeman is not an example because he had managed before Barcelona. Pirlo, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Gerrard. The rumors he might go to Liverpool at some point. You gotta be a good manager before you go to your club. It's not just a simple romantic. Oh, it's perfect match made in heaven. Yeah, they can get the culture, but tactically, Tuchel outclassed Pep. No chance Lampard does that. No chance. No chance they're even at this point if they have Frank Lampard. Can he never get to this point leading Chelsea to trophies? I don't know. He was there too soon. He needs to go manage elsewhere before he continues his ascent, I guess, back to Chelsea.
I felt really good for Tuchel. He's had his daughters on the field afterwards.
Yeah,
it was just good to see him, just how happy he was, because he has done an amazing job with this Chelsea side.
He was fired by PSG, who
After making it, I mean, granted, they got smoked in the Champions League final last year.
but he's in the Champions League final. They fire him, hire Pochettino, and Pochettino brings the Spurs to PSG, and they lose the title to Lille. And they get knocked out of the Champions League by City?
I think it was City.
It was
right?
City. So, I mean, Tuchel is probably saying, like, I think he's actually, funny enough, he is.
You think he's safe now?
I don't know. I think he's
not, like Roberto Di Matteo getting fired after winning the Champions League.
Exactly. I mean, at Chelsea, he's never going to be safe because he was not brought in to be a long-term guy. Some people saying he's building a Chelsea dynasty. No, he's not. This is Chelsea Football Club. He could build a dynasty. Frank Lampard could be a manager to build a dynasty because of who he is. He lacks the tactical experience and the ability as a manager to do it. Tuchel will not maintain or sustain the pressure that will come from the board. Frank Lampard was kept along for so long because he was Frank Lampard. When Tuchel hits a rough patch in December, I think he'll get fired. Like, I legitimately don't think he'll last out the calendar year, which is going to be crazy to think that he got them to 2 finals, winning them a Champions League.
Well, it depends what they do in the window and what they can do offensively. They've got to solve the midfield problem when Conte's not in there, so that you can figure out how to unlock Werner, so he's decent.
Let's not also have. I mean, this is very high value for Chelsea fans. They won't care what I say if they're even watching this long. But let's not have rose-tinted glasses. This is still a Chelsea team with a lot of flaws. It has lost a few matches. It lost a
They
Leicester.
can't score. They fall behind. They can't catch up.
They do not. They're not a free scoring side. They are a pretty good structured side defensively. But I mean, if Man City had a forward, and if they had De Bruyne, I think later on they could have figured out a way to break them
If he
down.
starts Fernandinho, it's a completely different match. If he plays the way they've played all season long,
I think
everybody knows their role, what they're supposed to do. It's a completely different game.
I'm very torn. I'm on the fence, but I think that City lost this game. Chelsea didn't win this game. I think if Chelsea had played,
Well, Pep did. I
think if Pep had played Fernandinho, if he maybe had played even Jesus, who I think is just criminally underrated by
Pep
Guardiola.
doesn't like strikers. This is what I don't get. Like,
there's a point where it's just like, at some point you have to respect that the game is played the way it's played because that's how it makes sense to be played. Not just because it's like, oh, it's antiquated. Let's try and change things up. Just don't overthink it.
Well, Pep wants to be right, and that's his flaw.
I think Pep
right now with that team.
I don't want to call Pep an egotistical person, but I think he wants to see The media talking about, oh man, Pep Guardiola with this inverted full backs with no defensive midfielder, no striker. He manages to win. What a tactical genius. I mean, that's how it works in the sport, as a result sport. If he had won, he would have been a genius, but he lost to the eggs in his face.
What was Gary Lineker's line? Like, football is played for 90 minutes by 22 people, and in the end, the Germans always win.
Like
it's just play football.
Hey, and you know what? Last 3 Champions Leagues, all won by a German coach. Klopp, Hansi Flick, Tuchel.
The Germans win. That'll do it for us for our look back at the All-English European Championship, UEFA Champions League final. Jack, Conrad, this has been the Footy 5. Please do let us know what you think in the comments. Please subscribe, look for us on the Twitter at the Footy 5. Take care now.